You press your palm into wet clay and lift it away. The shape remains, not because the clay is rewarding you, not because it's punishing you. The clay simply holds the conditions you gave it. This is closer to what the Buddha meant by karma than most of what we've been told. Somewhere along the way, karma became a cosmic courtroom. Good deeds earn points, bad deeds get punished. An invisible judge keeps score, and your next life depends on the tally. But this isn't what the teaching points to. It's not about deserving or earning. It's about cause and effect, as simple and immediate as your hand in clay. The word karma just means action, not the result of action, not the moral weight of action, just action itself. And the Buddha's insight was that actions leave traces. They shape what comes next, the way water shapes stone, the way walking the same path every day wears a groove in the earth. You can feel this in your own experience if you pay attention. Notice what happens after you speak harshly to someone, not later, when guilt arrives. Right in that moment, there's a tightening, a contraction in the chest. The throat closes slightly. The face grows hot. This isn't punishment from outside. This is the natural result of the action itself. The body responds to what the mind has done. And notice what happens after you speak with kindness. Even if the other person doesn't respond the way you hoped, even if nothing external changes, there's an opening, a softness in the shoulders. The breath moves more freely. This isn't a reward being handed to you. This is the texture of that particular action, the way it feels to move through the world in that way. The clay doesn't judge your hand. It simply receives the pressure and holds the form. Your mind works in a similar way. Each thought, each word, each movement of intention presses into the soft ground of consciousness. And that ground holds the shape. Not forever, not as punishment, just as the natural result of what was done. This is why the Buddha talked about karma in such practical terms. He wasn't interested in cosmic scorekeeping. He was interested in freedom. And freedom comes from understanding how suffering is made, moment by moment, through the actions we take and the patterns we reinforce. When you believe karma is about reward and punishment, you're always looking somewhere else. To the next life, to some future consequence, to a judge you can't see. But when you understand karma as cause and effect, you can look right here. At this breath, at this moment of tension in your jaw, at this impulse to turn away or to lean in. The teaching becomes immediate. You don't have to wait to see the results of your actions. You can feel them as they happen. The tightness of grasping, the ease of letting go, the weight of resentment, the lightness of forgiveness. These aren't rewards or punishments. They're the texture of the actions themselves. Press your palm into the clay again. Notice how the clay doesn't hold a grudge. It doesn't remember the last time you pressed too hard. It simply responds to what's happening now. Each moment is a new pressing. Each moment leaves its mark. This is what makes change possible. If karma were really about cosmic judgment, about debts that must be paid across lifetimes, then we'd be trapped, locked into patterns we can't escape. But if karma is just cause and effect, just the natural shaping that happens when conditions meet, then we can work with it. We can notice the pressing, we can soften the hand, we can choose in this moment to press differently. The Buddha called this the middle way. Not because it's moderate or safe, but because it sees clearly. It doesn't deny that actions have consequences, and it doesn't turn those consequences into a moral drama. It just watches, it notices, it learns. You're sitting here now, breathing. Your body is the result of countless causes. Your thoughts are the result of countless conditions. And in this moment, you're also making causes, shaping conditions, pressing your particular hand into the clay of this particular moment. There's no one watching to see if you do it right. There's no score being kept. There's just the pressing and the shape that remains, the action and its natural result. So, we can begin simply with what's here, with what we can feel and know directly, without needing to believe in invisible judges or future lives. We can begin with the breath, with the body, with the simple noticing of what it feels like to move through the world in this way or that way. You carry your past with you, not as a weight on your back, but as the shape of how you move through the world right now. The way you turn towards certain thoughts, the way your hand reaches without deciding, the way a familiar feeling arrives and you already know what comes next. This is what we mean when we speak of karma, not a cosmic ledger, not punishment deferred or reward promised, just this: what you do creates conditions. Those conditions shape what arises. What arises shapes what you do next. A stone dropped in still water creates ripples that move outward long after the stone has sunk. You can see them spreading, intersecting with other ripples, reaching the edges of the pond. The stone is gone. The water is still water. But the movement continues. Your actions are like this. They do not vanish the moment they end. They create patterns. They leave traces in your nervous system, in your habits of attention, in the way you meet the next moment. You said something sharp yesterday, and today you feel a tightness when you think of that person. You avoided a difficult conversation last week, and now avoidance feels easier than honesty. You paused to help someone, and something softened in you that is still soft today. This is not mystical. This is just how experience works. The Buddha said, "What you are is what you have been. What you will be is what you do now. Not what you wish, not what you intend someday. What you do now, in this moment, with this breath, with this choice." Most of us hear the word karma and think of fate. We think of debts we cannot escape. We think we are trapped by everything we have already done, and we fear everything we might do wrong in the future. We imagine a cosmic judge keeping score. But karma is not about judgment. It is about causation. It is about noticing that actions have consequences, not because the universe is punishing you, but because one thing leads to another. You touch a hot pan and your hand pulls back. You practice patience, and patience becomes more familiar. You feed resentment, and resentment grows. The stone creates ripples long after it has sunk, but the water does not hold a grudge. The water simply moves according to the conditions present. You are more like the water than you think. You are not fixed. You are not your worst moment. You are not even your best moment. You are the process of responding to conditions. And right now, in this moment, you are creating new conditions. This is where freedom lives. Not in erasing the past, not in controlling the future, but in seeing clearly what is happening now and choosing how you meet it. Notice one habitual action today, just one. Not to fix it, not to judge yourself for it, just to see it. Maybe you reach for your phone when you feel bored. Maybe you tense your jaw when someone criticizes you. Maybe you say yes when you want to say no. Maybe you hold your breath when you are anxious. Before the action, there is a feeling. Before you reach for the phone, there is restlessness. Before your jaw tightens, there is fear. Before you say yes, there is the discomfort of disappointing someone. Before you hold your breath, there is the wish to not feel what you are feeling. The feeling arises. It is just a feeling. Then the habit takes over. The hand moves, the jaw clenches, the word comes out, the breath stops. But if you see the feeling first, even once, something shifts. You are no longer only the habit, you're also the one who notices. And in that noticing, there is space. Not much, just a little, just enough to see that you have a choice. This is karma as present moment causation. This is the ripple you can actually touch. Not the ripples from 10 years ago, not the ripples you fear might come. This one, the one forming now. You do not need to change everything. You do not need to become someone else. You just need to see one moment clearly. clearly. One feeling before one action. That is enough. The stone has already sunk. The ripples are already moving. But the water is still here, still capable of stillness, still capable of reflecting the sky exactly as it is. What you do now matters, not because you are being watched, not because you will be rewarded or punished, but because this moment creates the next moment. And the next moment is where you live. We think karma means the world is keeping score, that if we are good, something good will come back. If we are bad, we will be punished. But this is not what the teaching points to. Karma is not a cosmic ledger. It is something quieter and closer than that. The word karma means action, but more precisely, it means the intention that gives rise to action. You can do the same thing twice with two different intentions and plant two entirely different seeds. A gardener plants seeds in spring but cannot watch them grow underground in darkness. The seed falls into soil. What happens next is hidden. The gardener waters the ground, walks away, and waits. Weeks pass before anything breaks the surface. This is how intention works. You speak a sentence. The words leave your mouth and enter the air. You may not feel anything shift, but something has been set in motion. The intention behind those words, whether you noticed it or not, has begun to grow. It grows in you first. It shapes the soil of your mind. And from that soil, more will come. We cannot see this happening. That is the problem. We see the words. We see the action, but we do not see the intention that came before. And because we do not see it, we think it does not matter. We think what matters is whether the outcome was good or bad, whether people liked what we said, whether we got what we wanted. But the fruit depends on the soil of mind. If the intention was rooted in anger, even if the words sounded polite, anger is what grows. If the intention was rooted in care, even if the words were clumsy, care is what deepens. The outer result may vary. The inner result does not lie. This is not about morality. It is not about being a good person or a bad person. It is about cause and effect. Intention is cause. What grows in your mind is effect. You are not being judged by the universe. You are being shaped by your own attention. Before speaking today, pause and notice the intention behind your words. Not after you speak, not while you are speaking. Before. In that small gap between the impulse and the utterance, there is a choice. Not a choice about what to say. A choice about what you are planting. You might notice the intention is to be heard, or to be right, or to avoid discomfort. You might notice the intention is to connect, or to protect, or to harm. None of these are wrong, but each one is a seed, and each seed will grow according to its nature. The gardener does not control the weather. The gardener does not control the soil, but the gardener chooses what to plant, and once the seed is in the ground, the gardener cannot take it back. The seed will do what seeds do. It will draw from the soil. It will grow in darkness, and eventually it will surface. You have been planting seeds your whole life. Some of them you remember, most of them you do not. But they are there. They have shaped the garden of your mind. The way you speak to yourself, the way you move through a room, the way you react when someone criticizes you. These are not random. These are fruits. And the fruits are not punishments. They are not rewards. They are simply what grew. If you planted impatience, impatience is what ripened. If you planted gentleness, gentleness is what you taste now. This is not fair or unfair. It is just true. When you pause before speaking, you are not trying to be perfect. You are not trying to plant only beautiful seeds. You are simply looking. What is here in this moment before the words come? Is it fear? Is it kindness? Is it the need to fill silence? Is it the wish to be seen? Whatever it is, that is the seed. And that seed is already growing, not in the other person, in you. The other person may never know what you intended, but you will know, your mind will know, and the soil will remember. The teaching says intention is the seed of action. This is not philosophy. This is instruction. Look at the seed before you plant it, not to judge it, not to stop yourself, just to see it clearly. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, the growing changes. The gardener learns to recognize seeds by touch, by weight, by shape. After many seasons, the gardener does not need to wait for the fruit. The gardener knows what was planted. You can learn this too. You can learn to feel the texture of your own intentions. Not perfectly, not every time, but more often than before. This is karma, not reward, not punishment, just the quiet truth that what you plant in darkness will eventually grow. We say the word karma, and something tightens in the chest, as if the universe is keeping score, as if every misstep is recorded, every unkindness stored up, waiting to return with interest. We imagine a ledger, a judge, a cosmic accountant, tallying our debts. But a river carries a leaf downstream, not as punishment, but as natural movement. The water flows, the leaf moves. There is no tribunal deciding whether the leaf deserves to travel or should be held in place. This is closer to what the old teachers meant. Karma is not a moral force. It is not watching you. It does not care about your intentions in the way you think it does. Karma is simply this. Actions have consequences. Causes produce effects. The stone rolls downhill because of gravity, not because gravity disapproves of the stone. When you speak harshly to someone, something shifts in the space between you. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because words change the texture of relationship. The air becomes different. The next conversation begins from this new place. This is not judgment, this is movement. Sit quietly for a moment and notice one consequence in your day without labeling it good or bad. Maybe you woke late and missed the early light. Maybe you said yes to something and now your evening looks different. Maybe you skipped a meal and now there is heaviness in your limbs. Just notice the connection. This happened and then this followed. Like the river carrying the leaf, one thing flowing into the next. The teaching says cause and effect are not two things. The river flows, the stone is carried. We want to separate them. We want to say the river is one thing and the stone's movement is another, and somewhere between them is a decision, a judgment, a reason why the stone deserves to move. But the flow and the carrying happen together. They are the same event seen from different angles. You cannot have the river without the movement. You cannot have the action without the consequence rippling outward. This is hard to accept because we want karma to be personal. We want it to mean something about us. If good things happen, we must be good. If painful things arrive, we must have failed. But the river does not carry the leaf downstream because the leaf is bad. The river carries the leaf because that is what rivers do with leaves. The current moves, the leaf is light. These conditions meet and movement happens. Equanimity enters here, not as indifference, but as clear seeing. You can watch the process without needing it to confirm or deny your worth. You can see that you spoke in anger, and now there is distance between you and another person. And this is simply what happens when anger is spoken. Not because you are being punished, because words are forces that shape the space around them. The stone in the river does not take its movement personally. When you sit quietly and look at one small consequence, let it be ordinary. You drank coffee and now your heart beats faster. You stayed up late and now the morning feels thick. You smiled at someone and they smiled back, and the rest of the encounter was softer. These are not rewards or punishments. These are patterns. Water flows downhill. Heat rises. Kindness often softens the space it enters. Harshness often tightens it. The leaf does not argue with the current. It does not wonder if it deserves to move downstream or if it should have been carried upstream instead. It simply moves because the conditions are such that movement happens. you can begin to see your own life this way. Not as a series of verdicts, but as a series of conditions meeting other conditions. You were tired, so you snapped. You snapped, so the conversation closed. The conversation closed, so the evening was quiet. The evening was quiet, so you noticed the tightness in your chest. You noticed the tightness, so you sat down. You sat down, so the breath became visible. Each moment arising from the last. No judge, no scorekeeper. Just this flowing into that, the way a river carries everything in its path, not because it has opinions about stones and leaves, but because carrying is what water does when it moves. Sit with one consequence today. Not the big ones, not the ones that feel heavy with meaning, just one small ordinary consequence. You ate quickly, and now there is tension in your stomach. You walked slowly, and now you are late. You listened carefully, and now you remember what was said. Notice the connection without adding a story about whether you were right or wrong to create this cause. Just see the pattern. This, then that. Cause-meeting effect in the same moment. The way the river and the stone's movement are not two separate things. The teaching is pointing to something simple. You do not need to be afraid of karma. You do not need to manage it or outrun it. You only need to see it clearly. Action and consequence, flowing together, impersonal as water, ordinary as breath. You reach for the cup before you know you are thirsty. The hand moves, the body shifts. And only afterward, if you notice at all, does the thought arrive, I wanted water. This is how most of our life unfolds. Action first, awareness second, or not at all. Karma is not a cosmic accountant tallying points. It is not punishment delivered by an invisible judge. It is simply this. Actions have consequences, and most of our actions are performed while we are not really here. We move through the day on autopilot, repeating gestures we learned so long ago we have forgotten we are performing them. The same tone of voice when we are irritated. The same pulling away when we feel uncertain. The same reaching toward comfort when discomfort appears. And then we wonder why the same difficulties return, why the same arguments surface, why we feel trapped in patterns we swore we would not repeat. The Buddha said the fool who knows he is a fool is wise, at least in that. The fool who thinks himself wise is a fool indeed. This is not an insult. It is an invitation to honesty. The first kind of fool has seen something. He has noticed the gap between what he intended and what he actually did. He has felt the sting of acting without awareness and recognized it. That recognition is the beginning of freedom. The second fool has not yet seen. He believes his actions are conscious, deliberate, chosen. He does not notice the hand already moving toward the cup. Most of us live between these two. We catch glimpses of our unconsciousness, then forget again. We see the pattern for a moment, then fall back into it. This is not failure, this is the practice. Mindfulness does not ask you to be perfect. It asks you to notice, to see the moment when the impulse rises, to feel the body already leaning toward the phone before the decision was made, to catch the words forming in the mouth before the mind has considered whether they are true or kind. This noticing does not stop the impulse, not at first, but it creates a gap, a small space between the urge and the action. And in that space, choice becomes possible. You do not need to sit in meditation for hours to find this gap. You do not need to retreat from your life. You need only to bring full attention to one ordinary action. Just one. Today, choose something small, something you do without thinking. Washing your hands, opening a door, putting on your shoes, drinking that cup of water. Decide before you begin that you will stay with the action from start to finish, not rushing toward the end, not thinking about what comes next, just this, the hand reaching, the fingers curling around the handle, the weight of the cup, the coolness against the palm, the lifting, the tilt, The water touching the lips, the swallowing, the cup returning to the table, all of it, every part. You will be surprised how difficult this is, how quickly the mind leaps away, how strong the pull toward the next thing. This is not a problem to solve. This is what you are observing. The automaticity, the momentum of habit. The body already 3 steps ahead, while the mind is still somewhere else entirely. When you bring attention to a single action, you begin to see how many actions you perform while absent. How the hand reaches for the cup before thirst is even registered. How the pattern completes itself before awareness arrives. This is karma in motion, not a punishment, not a reward, just cause and effect unfolding in the dark. But when you stay present for one full action, something shifts. You feel the gap, the small opening between impulse and movement. You notice the choice that was always there, but hidden by speed and habit. This is where freedom lives, not in grand decisions, not in resolutions made and broken, in the quiet space between wanting and doing. The fool who thinks himself wise believes he is already choosing. He does not see the hand moving on its own. The fool who knows he is a fool has seen it, has felt the humbling truth of how much happens without him. And in that seeing, wisdom begins, not as knowledge, as presence, one action, fully attended. That is enough. The rest will follow, not because you force it, because you have seen where choice actually lives. You carry certain memories like stones in your pocket, not because you chose to pick them up this morning, but because you picked them up long ago and forgot they were there. One stone might be something you said in anger, another might be a moment of cowardice, and some stones feel smooth and warm, moments when you were kind or brave and you reach for them when you need to remember you are good. But both kinds, the sharp ones and the smooth ones, suggest the same thing, that who you were then is who you are now. An echo in a canyon grows quieter with each repetition until silence returns. The sound that seemed so solid when it first rang out becomes thinner, softer, less certain of its shape. What you did 5 years ago, or last month, or this morning, is like that first shout. It happened. It moved through the world, but it is not still happening. The reverberations grow fainter. The canyon does not hold the sound forever. You might believe that your past actions have built something permanent inside you, that you are the sum of what you have done. This is not entirely wrong. Actions do leave traces, but the traces are not you. They are conditions that arose, played out, and are now changing. The person who spoke in anger is not frozen in that anger. The moment has already dissolved. What remains is a memory, and memory is not a fixed thing. It shifts each time you touch it. Karma is often misunderstood as a kind of scorekeeping. You do something good, you earn a point. You do something harmful, you lose one. The universe keeps a ledger, and eventually you will be rewarded or punished. But this is not what the teaching points to. Karma is not about judgment from above or a cosmic balance sheet. It is about causation. An action arises from conditions. It creates further conditions. Those conditions give rise to new actions. There is a flow, but no fixed self moving through it. The Mahayana tradition offers something quietly radical here. No action has a permanent self. Even the act you regret most deeply, the one that feels like it defines you, has no solid core. It was a moment born from causes, and it passed away. The guilt you feel now is not the same as the guilt you felt yesterday. It has a different texture. It arises in a different body, a different mind. You are not carrying the original act, you are carrying a story about it. This is where the echo returns. Each time you replay the memory, it is fainter, more shaped by the present than by the past. The canyon does not preserve the sound exactly as it was. The walls, the air, the listener, all of these change what is heard. And eventually, if you stop shouting, the echo fades completely. Silence returns. Not because the sound was unreal, but because sound is not permanent. You might try this now, if you are willing. Bring to mind one past action you regret. Not the worst thing you have ever done, just something that still pulls at you. Notice where you feel it in your body. Is there tightness in your chest, heaviness in your belly, a clenching in your throat? Stay with the feeling, not the story. The story will try to come forward. It will say, I am the person who did that. But the feeling itself is just sensation. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and if you watch it without feeding it, it has an end. As you observe, notice if the feeling stays exactly the same. Does it sharpen or soften? Does it move or settle? Does it ask for something? Or does it simply exist for a moment and then shift into something else? You are not trying to make it go away. You are seeing it as it is, impermanent, conditionless in its essence, arising and passing. The teaching is not that your actions do not matter. They do. They shape the conditions of your life and the lives of others. But they do not create a permanent you. Each moment is born fresh and dies away. The person you were when you acted is not the person observing now, and the person observing now will not be the person who wakes tomorrow. This is not a loss, this is freedom. The echo grows quieter. The canyon remains vast and still. What you did is not erased, but it is also not solid. It does not define the shape of the silence that follows. There is a deer in the forest. She wakes each morning and walks to the stream. The first time she moved through dense brush, uncertain, testing the ground. But now the path is clear. Her hooves have pressed the same line into the earth so many times that grass no longer grows there. She does not choose this route anymore. The route chooses her. This is how craving works in a human life. We think of karma as cosmic accounting. Something we did yesterday gets tallied, a reward arrives or a punishment lands. But the Buddha pointed to something quieter and more immediate. He said, craving is the builder. It constructs the house of suffering brick by brick. Not because we are bad, not because we deserve pain, but because wanting has direction. It creates momentum, and momentum becomes pattern. You reach for your phone in the morning before your eyes are fully open. You check the same sites in the same order. You feel a pull toward the refrigerator even though you ate an hour ago. You open a conversation already knowing what you will say, already braced for what the other person will say back. These are not random acts. They are the deer's path, worn smooth by repetition. Karma is not about the universe judging you. It is about the grooves you carve into your own nervous system. Each time you follow a craving, you make that path a little deeper. Each time you turn toward comfort or away from discomfort, the turning becomes easier. The path becomes automatic. And one day you look around and realize you are living in a house you do not remember building. The thirst is always there first. Not the action, not the thought, the thirst. A subtle leaning, a sense that something is missing. That if you just had that one thing, that one experience, that one word from that one person, then you could rest. The mind does not announce this. It simply moves, and the body follows. This is not about blame. Craving is not a moral failure. It is a feature of sentient life. The Buddha did not say stop wanting. He said see it. Notice the thirst before the hand moves. Notice the gap between the feeling of lack and the motion to fill it. That gap is where freedom lives. If you watch carefully, you will see that craving has texture. Sometimes it is sharp and urgent. Sometimes it is dull and habitual. Sometimes it dresses up as necessity. Sometimes it whispers that it is not even there. But it always has a direction, towards something. away from something, never still. The deer does not know she is walking the same path, she only knows the stream is that way. But you can know. You can stand at the head of the path and feel the pull without stepping forward. Not forever, not as a test of willpower, just once, just long enough to notice that the pull is not you. It is a visitor, a force passing through. When you reach for something today, pause. Not to stop yourself, not to be good. Just to ask what thirst is present. Is it thirst for distraction, for comfort, for confirmation, for an end to this moment so the next one can arrive? You do not need to name it perfectly. You only need to feel it as separate from the one who is aware of it. This is the practice. Not grand, not dramatic. Just one moment of seeing the builder at work. One moment of watching craving lay a brick without picking up the trowel yourself. Because when you see it clearly, something shifts. Not immediately, not all at once, but the path begins to fade. Grass starts to grow back. The root loses its inevitability. The deer will still go to the stream. You will still reach for things. But the reaching becomes lighter, less automatic, less like fate. You begin to see that craving is not the master, it is the engine. And an engine can be recognized without being obeyed. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of karma. Not a system of rewards and punishments handed down from above, but the simple physics of repetition, the way a mind shapes itself by what it reaches for, the way a life takes form around the direction of its thirst. When you see craving as the engine of that momentum, you see the whole mechanism. And in seeing it, you are already standing outside of it, already free in the only way that matters, not free from wanting, but free from being carried by it without knowing. You reach for your phone before you've decided to. The hand moves, the screen lights, the scroll begins, and somewhere underneath, a voice says, "This is just who I am now." We carry this belief quietly, that once a pattern has set, it becomes the shape we must live inside, that karma is a kind of sentencing. What we've done determines what we'll do, and the clay has already hardened. But the teaching says otherwise. The pot is not yet fired. While the clay is soft, the shape can change. A potter works with wet clay on the wheel. The form rises under her hands. If the wall tilts or thins unevenly, she doesn't abandon it. She wets her fingers, steadies the spin, and draws the clay back into balance. The vessel is still soft. It remembers the water it came from. But once the pot enters the kiln, once the heat sets the structure, the clay becomes something else. Fixed, permanent. To change a fired pot, you must break it. You must start again from fragments. Most of our patterns have not been fired. They feel solid because we repeat them. We reach for the phone, skip the difficult conversation, eat standing at the counter, stay silent when we meant to speak. Each repetition adds weight, adds familiarity, but not permanence. The clay is still wet. Karma, in its oldest sense, simply means action, not punishment, not fate. Just the observable truth that actions condition more actions. What you do shapes what comes next. A groove forms in the mind. The hand learns the route to the phone. The body learns to brace before a certain kind of question. These are grooves, not sentences. And grooves can be interrupted. You don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need to become someone new by morning. The practice here is smaller, more specific. Choose one habit today and do it differently, not perfectly, just differently, even awkwardly. If you always drink coffee standing at the counter, sit down. If you scroll before bed, place the phone across the room and lie still for 3 breaths first. If you answer questions quickly to avoid silence, let the silence arrive. Let it sit there. Let your hands stay still. It will feel strange. That strangeness is not a sign you're doing it wrong. It's a sign the clay is moving. The potter doesn't force the clay into a new shape with one hard push. She applies steady, gentle pressure. She returns to the wheel again and again. And each time, the clay remembers a little less of what it was, and a little more of what is becoming. This is not about willpower. Willpower tries to fire the pot faster, to lock in the new shape before it can slip. But that's not how change moves through the body. Change begins with noticing. You see the hand reaching. You feel the impulse before the action. And in that sliver of space, just that much, you introduce a different possibility. One small habit, one deliberate awkwardness, not to prove anything, not to fix yourself, just to feel what it's like when the automaticity breaks. You might reach for your phone and stop halfway. The hand hovers, the urge is still there, but you're watching it now. The clay hasn't hardened. You can let the hand drop, you can turn toward the window instead, you can do nothing at all, or you sit down with your coffee and the chair feels unfamiliar. You're used to standing, moving, doing the next thing. Sitting asks you to stop. The body resists. But you stay. Just for a moment, just long enough to notice that the pattern is a choice you've been making, not a fact you've been living under. The teaching doesn't promise that change will be easy. It promises that change is possible. The pot is not yet fired, the shape is still soft, and you are the one with your hands on the wheel. This is what practice looks like. Not transcendence, not suddenly becoming calm or disciplined or free. Just the quiet discovery that you can place your attention differently, that the groove is deep but not bottomless, that the next moment hasn't been written yet. Choose one thing. Do it differently. Let it be awkward. Let it feel like you're learning to walk again, because in a way you are. You're learning that the body can be met with gentleness, that the pattern can be touched without collapsing, that the clay is still soft and your hands are still here. We carry our actions like stones in our pockets. Some we label good, some we label bad, and we think that is the end of it. But karma is not a courtroom. It is not a scale that tips toward reward or punishment. It is something quieter than that, something closer to the way a field receives whatever falls into it. A field does not refuse weeds or favor flowers. It simply receives all seeds equally and lets them grow according to their nature. When we look at our own actions, we rarely offer them this kind of neutrality. We judge quickly. We decide that this thing we did was pure kindness, or that thing was pure selfishness. We flatten the complexity into categories. And in doing so, we miss what is actually happening. Every action arises from conditions. Some of those conditions are visible to us, some are hidden. There is intention, yes, but there is also confusion, there is habit. There is the weight of what was done to us, the stories we inherited, the fears we never chose. All of this moves through us when we act. The teaching from the Mahayana tradition says that compassion sees how all beings plant seeds in confusion. Even when we think we are acting clearly, there are layers we do not see. The wise tend the field without hatred. They do not pull up the weeds with disgust. They do not praise the flowers as if they earned their beauty. They simply tend. This is not about excusing harm. It is about seeing more accurately. When we collapse an action into a single judgment, we lose the ability to learn from it. We either cling to pride or sink into shame. Both responses close the door to understanding. Think of one action you judge harshly. It does not need to be large. It could be a moment of impatience, a word spoken in anger, a choice to turn away when someone needed you. Bring it to mind now, but do not let the judgment rush in immediately. Let the memory arrive first, just as it is. Notice what was present in that moment, not what should have been present, what actually was. Perhaps there was tiredness, perhaps there was fear. Perhaps there was a belief you were protecting yourself or someone else. Perhaps you were repeating a pattern you learned long ago, one you did not even know you carried. This is not about making excuses. It is about seeing the field as it actually is. A field does not refuse weeds or favor flowers, it holds all of it. And in holding it, the field allows for growth, for change, for the slow work of transformation. When we hold our own actions this way, something shifts. The weight of self-condemnation begins to lift, not because we have decided the action was fine, but because we have stopped collapsing ourselves into that single moment. We see that we are not a fixed thing. We are a process, a field that receives seeds, some planted intentionally, some blown in by the wind. The practice here is simple. Bring to mind that one action you judge harshly and hold it with the same gentleness you would offer a child. A child who acted without understanding all the consequences. A child who was trying, in their own confused way, to meet a need or avoid a pain. You do not have to approve of what was done. You do not have to call it good. You only have to stop adding the weight of hatred on top of it. Let the action be what it was. A seed planted in confusion, a result of conditions. Something that can be learned from without being weaponized against yourself. This is what it means to tend the field without hatred. You see the weeds. You acknowledge them. But you do not curse the ground for allowing them to grow. You understand that the ground is simply doing what ground does. Receiving, holding, allowing. And in that allowing, there is space for something new. Not because you have forced it, but because you have stopped gripping so tightly to the story of your own badness. You have stopped demanding that you should have been different in a moment when you were exactly as you were, shaped by every condition that brought you there. The field does not hate itself for the weeds, it tends them, it learns, it shifts. And slowly, with patience, the conditions change. New seeds fall, new growth emerges, not because the field became worthy, but because it never stopped being a field. We carry a story about ourselves that feels unshakable. We say, "I did this," or "I am responsible for that," and the words land with such weight that we rarely question them. But what if that weight is not what we think it is? The Buddha pointed to something simple and unsettling. Actions arise from conditions. Where is the actor when you look closely? This is not a trick question. It is an invitation to look. You might say, "I made breakfast this morning." And yes, there was a body standing in the kitchen. There were hands cracking eggs. But was there really a separate self doing the cracking? Or was there hunger and memory of how to cook, and the habit of morning routines, and the presence of food in the refrigerator, and 1,000 other conditions, all arriving at once? Wind moves through trees, but no tree owns the wind that bends its branches. The movement happens, the bending happens, but when you search for the one who owns it, you find only the meeting of forces. This is not about denying responsibility. It is about seeing what responsibility actually rests on. We have been taught to think of karma as a kind of cosmic accounting. Good deeds go in one column, bad deeds in another. Somewhere, a self accumulates merit or debt. But that is not what the teaching points to. Karma is not about a fixed self being rewarded or punished. It is about actions and their conditions, unfolding without a separate owner at the center. When you stub your toe, pain arises. You do not need to locate a you who is feeling the pain for the pain to be real. The conditions are enough. Contact, nerves, sensation. It happens. In the same way, when an action arises, a word spoken in anger, a hand reaching out in kindness, it arises from conditions. There was a thought, there was a feeling, there was a history of similar moments, there was the presence of another person, there was the weather, the time of day, the quality of sleep the night before, all of it converging. And yet we say, "I did that," as if there were a small, solid thing inside pulling levers. The wind moves through trees, and each branch sways differently, depending on its flexibility, its angle, the season. The wind does not belong to the tree, The swaying does not belong to the wind. They meet, and movement happens. So when you notice yourself thinking, "I did this," you can pause. Not to judge the thought, not to argue with it, just to ask, what conditions made that action possible? You might be sitting with a decision you regret. The mind says, "I should not have done that. I am the one who failed." But if you pause and look, what do you find? Maybe there was fatigue. Maybe there was fear left over from something earlier in the day. Maybe there was a pattern learned in childhood, so old you do not even see it operating. Maybe there was simply not enough information at the time. None of this erases the action. The consequences are still real. But it shifts where you are looking. You are no longer searching for a guilty self to punish or a virtuous self to praise. You are seeing conditions. This is where the teaching becomes tender. Because if your actions arise from conditions, so do everyone else's. The person who hurt you was also moved by wind they did not own. The branch bent. The bending was real. But there was no fixed self deciding to bend. You can begin to practice this in small moments. You reach for your phone without thinking. Before you unlock it, pause. What condition brought your hand here? Was it boredom, habit, a sound, the shape of the day so far? You speak sharply to someone you love. Before the guilt takes over, pause. What was present just before the words came? Hunger? Overwhelm? An old wound brushing against a new one? You are not looking for excuses. You are looking at what is actually happening. And in that looking, something loosens. The story of, "I did this and I am bad," or "I did this and I am good," starts to lose its grip. What remains is simpler. An action happened. It had causes. It will have effects. And none of it needed a permanent self at the center to make it real. The wind keeps moving. The branches keep bending. And you begin to see that you are not the tree or the wind. You are the space in which they meet. We imagine karma as a ledger kept somewhere else, a tally that follows us, something delivered later when conditions align. But karma is not waiting in the future. It is being written now in the quality of this moment's response. The word itself means action, not consequence, not fate, action, and action is only ever here. A farmer does not wait for perfect weather. He watches the season arrive and plants. The soil may be rocky, the sky uncertain, but the season does not repeat itself because he hesitated. He works with what is present, knowing that delay is also a choice, and choices shape what follows. We spend so much time preparing to begin, waiting for clarity, waiting for strength, waiting for the anger to pass completely before we speak with kindness, waiting for the mind to be still before we sit. But the intention to wait is itself an action. It leaves its mark. And why we wait, the moment that could have held a different choice has already gone. This is not about urgency. It is about recognizing that the path is not something we step onto later. This breath is the path. This step, however clumsy, this word, even if it comes out wrong. The intention beneath the action is what plants the seed. And intention is only alive in the present. You might notice this when you delay a difficult conversation. Not because the timing is truly wrong, but because you are waiting to feel ready. The waiting itself becomes a habit. A groove deepened each time you choose it. And the karma of avoidance is not some punishment handed down. It is the lived experience of a mind that has practiced turning away. The next time the moment comes, turning away will feel even more natural. Or you might see it in small moments of impatience. The cashier is slow. You feel the tightness in your chest. You think, "I should be kinder," but not yet, not while I'm this frustrated. So you wait for the feeling to pass. But the feeling does not pass on its own. It passes when you meet it with something else. A breath, a softening, The choice to speak gently even while the impatience is still there. That choice is karma taking shape, not later. Now. The farmer plants in the season that arrives, not the one he imagined. He does not wait for soil without stones. He works with the field he has. And this is what practice asks, not perfection, not ideal conditions, just the willingness to meet this moment as the only ground where anything can grow. You can begin to notice this in your own day, not as a grand shift, but as a quiet question. At the end of today, before sleep, let yourself notice one intention you can plant for tomorrow. Not a rigid plan, not a promise you will punish yourself for breaking, just a seed. Perhaps it is the intention to pause before responding when irritation rises. Perhaps it is the intention to feel your feet on the ground when you wake, before reaching for your phone. Perhaps it is simpler still, the intention to notice one moment of ease, however brief. The intention does not need to succeed. It does not need to be maintained all day. You are not trying to control tomorrow. You are planting something in the soil of awareness. And whether it grows or not, the act of planting is itself the path. This is karma as practice, not as judgment, not as debt. As the simple truth that what you do now shapes the ground you will walk on next. The farmer does not stand over the seed demanding it sprout. He plants, and then he lets the earth do what earth does. Your intention works the same way. You place it gently. You do not grip it. You do not measure yourself against it. You simply notice that you planted something, and that planting is already a different choice than not planting. Tomorrow, the intention may be forgotten by noon. You may find yourself snapping at someone, reaching for distraction, moving too fast to feel your feet. That is not failure. That is information. The seed was placed, and the conditions were not yet right. So you notice. And perhaps that evening, you plant again. Same intention or a different one. The practice is not in the outcome. It is in the returning. This is where karma is made, not in the distant result, not in the future you are waiting to arrive, but in the tiny choice to meet this moment with awareness instead of habit, to plant instead of postponing, to recognize that now is not preparation for the path. Now is the path itself. You have been sitting with this for a while now, the idea that karma is not a cosmic judge, that it is simply the way things unfold when intention meets action, that suffering comes from clinging, and freedom comes from seeing clearly. None of this needs to be perfect. You do not need to master karma or understand it completely. You only need to notice what happens when you act with greed, with aversion, with delusion. And what happens when you act with generosity, with kindness, with clarity. The difference shows itself quietly, in the body, in the mind, in the way the day feels. This is not about becoming a better person in some final sense. It is about being awake to what you are doing right now. And then the next moment, and the next. Each choice is small. Each choice matters. When you see karma this way, it stops being a burden. It stops being something you failed at, or something you need to fix in retrospect. It becomes something alive, something you are always in the middle of. You are always planting seeds. You are always tending to the garden, even when you are not thinking about it. And so the question is not whether you have good karma or bad karma. The question is, what are you watering right now? What are you feeding? What are you turning toward? If you have been feeding anger, you will feel its heaviness. If you have been feeding fear, you will feel its tightness. If you have been feeding kindness, even in small ways, you will feel its softness. This is not reward. This is resonance. The Buddha spoke often of metta, of loving kindness, as a protection, not because it shields you from difficulty, but because it changes the soil. When you practice metta, you are not trying to fix the world or fix yourself. You are simply inclining the mind toward goodwill, toward friendliness, toward care. You can do this now if you like. You can let the breath settle. You can bring to mind your own face, your own body, your own struggling heart. And you can offer yourself the simplest wish. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. You do not have to feel it perfectly. You do not have to believe it completely. You are just planting the seed. You are just turning the mind in that direction. And then, if it feels natural, you can widen the circle. Someone you love, someone neutral, someone difficult, all beings everywhere, known and unknown, near and far. May they be safe. May they be peaceful. May they be free from suffering. This is not sentimentality, this is training. You are training the mind to default to kindness instead of fear, to openness instead of contraction. And every time you do this, even briefly, you are shaping karma. You are shaping the conditions of your own heart. The path is long, but it is not harsh. It asks you to see clearly, yes. To take responsibility, yes. But it does not ask you to carry shame. It does not ask you to be flawless. It asks you to be awake, to notice, to choose again. And if you forget, you can return. If you fall back into old patterns, you can notice that too. The noticing itself is freedom. The willingness to begin again is the practice. So as you move away from this moment, from these words, carry with you the understanding that karma is not fixed. It is fluid. It is being written in every breath, every thought, every small gesture. You are not trapped by the past. You are participating in what comes next. May you meet yourself with kindness. May you meet others with patience. May you see clearly without cruelty. May you know that your actions matter, and may that knowing be a source of care, not fear. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings know peace. If you would like to continue sitting with these teachings, there are other reflections waiting. On impermanence, on the nature of self, on the quiet work of letting go. But there is no rush. You can return whenever it serves you. For now, rest here. Let the mind be soft. Let the heart be open. This is enough.